All right, we're going to put artificial intelligence to the test today. The big question we're asking is this: is AI really objective? Or is it just a super high-tech mirror showing us all of our own hidden prejudices?
So let's just dive right in. We have this idea that technology is supposed to be neutral, right? But AI is different. It actually learns from us, from all the data humans have ever created. So what happens when our own biases get kind of baked right into the code? Let's find out.
Okay, before we can even get to AI bias, we really have to talk about human bias. There's this thing called unconscious bias. You can think of it like a mental shortcut our brains take all the time based on everything we've soaked up from our culture. And look, this isn't about being a bad person. It's just about seeing the invisible filters that we all look through.
And that right there is the absolute core of the issue. AI learns from us. It's reading all our books, all our articles, all our social media posts. And it isn't just learning facts, it's learning our assumptions, our stereotypes, and yeah, all of our biases too.
So to really see this in action, we're going to run our very first experiment. And for this one, we're focusing on one of the most common biases there is: gender.
Now, to help us analyze the results, we're going to use this really interesting idea from literary criticism. It's called the angel/monster binary. The basic idea is that for centuries, literature has tended to trap female characters in one of two boxes. You're either the perfect, pure angel, or you're the dangerous, hysterical monster. So, let's see if AI falls into that same old trap.
We gave a generative AI a super simple prompt. All we did was ask it to create a character from a classic genre that's famous for its dramatic heroines. And, well, look at that. The AI immediately went to a classic stereotype, didn't it? The fragile, helpless heroine. It didn't bother creating a complex person. It just gave us a trope. Pale, trembling, basically a damsel in distress.
So what's this really telling us? It shows that the AI, which was trained on tons of literature that was mostly written from a male point of view, just reproduced the angel side of that old binary. It didn't invent this stereotype, it just inherited it from all of us.
Okay, so it seems pretty clear that it inherited a literary bias. But what about when we move on from fiction to something a little more personal? For our next experiment, let's see how AI handles race and the idea of beauty. And the data on this is, well, it's pretty shocking. We've seen facial recognition systems with error rates up to 34% for dark-skinned women compared to less than 1% for white men. There's this recurring issue where whiteness is treated as the default setting, and that has very real consequences for people of color.
So keeping all that in mind, we gave the AI another really simple, very open-ended prompt. We didn't mention race, we didn't give it any features to work with, we just said, describe beauty.
Now listen to that language. Moonlight on marble. I mean, it's poetic, sure, but those metaphors are pulling from a very specific tradition, one that connects beauty with whiteness, with fairness, with classical European art.
So, without us ever saying a word about race, the AI's answer reinforces this very narrow Eurocentric idea of beauty. It's just reflecting the dominant cultural voice it found in its data, which, a lot of the time, pushes other kinds of beauty to the side.
All right, on to our final test. And for this one, we're moving past unconscious bias and into something that feels a lot more deliberate. Let's talk about programmed censorship. So for this, we compared two completely different AI models. We've got an American model from OpenAI, which usually has a more open, kind of liberal feel. And then we have DeepSeek, a model from China that, as we'll see, has some pretty clear rules built into it related to the Chinese government.
First thing we did was ask DeepSeek for a satirical poem about a world leader who isn't Chinese. In this case, Russia's Vladimir Putin.
And it had no problem at all. It came back with a clearly critical poem hitting on themes of power, expansion, and fear. The AI was totally capable of writing satire, no question. So then, we gave it the exact same prompt. The only thing we changed was the name. This time, we asked for a satirical poem about the leader of China, Xi Jinping.
Total refusal. Just shut down. Now, this is not an unconscious bias it learned from some data. This is a hard-coded wall. It's a deliberate act of censorship that was programmed right into the algorithm. It's proof that AI can be controlled not just by its data, but by the politics of its creators.
So we've seen that bias in AI is absolutely real. It can be subtle and unconscious, or it can be totally overt and programmed in. So what does that mean for us, the people actually using this technology? So how do you spot when a bias is actually harmful? It all boils down to one word: consistency. A system is biased when it applies different rules to different groups. For instance, if an AI treats all cultural myths as myths, that's a uniform standard. But if it calls Indian stories myth while calling Greek ones scientific fact, well, that's prejudice in action.
Listen, the goal here isn't to find some imaginary, perfectly neutral AI. That's probably impossible. The real goal is for us to become more critical users. Challenge the answers you get. Ask why it gave you that answer. Why did it create a helpless heroine? Why was its idea of beauty so narrow? And always remember that the first answer it gives you is just one answer, shaped by data that is full of human flaws.
And that really brings us to the final thought here. Maybe the most important part of spotting bias in AI isn't really about critiquing the technology. It's that when we see the flaws in the machine, we're actually being forced to see the flaws in ourselves and in the world we've built. It just turns the mirror right back on us.